All right, welcome back to our second video where we'll continue from the introduction class on AWS. Now, the first thing you need to do is to visit aws.amazon.com. Here you land on the page similar to what I have on my screen, and you come to create an account. So creating an account in AWS requires you to have your credit card handy, and you will not be charged. However, just for future billing, and that is why you are required to input your card. Using AWS is pretty interesting, and for the purpose of this our training, we'll see how to optimize cost. We'll see how to deploy services using the free tier um, plan. So the free tier, because AWS offers 1 year free tier services, so most of all the things we'll be doing, we'll try to stick to the free tier. There are areas while we move on that you might incur cost, but we'll try to keep it as minute as possible, such that whatever happens within a month shouldn't get beyond $1 or two. Also, using AWS, we can also see how to set what we call a billing alarm, meaning as you use the resources, you can set the alarm of your AWS to let you know when you are reaching, let's say, 85% of your threshold in terms of what you want to incur as cost within the period. So what we'll be doing is, once you log in, you can set that threshold to $5. So once your resources or whatever you're doing is going to hit $2 or $3, you get an alarm, you get an email notification. So here you enter your root username. This means the email address that you want to use to create the AWS account. You give it a name, verify your email, and move through the next step, which are pretty straightforward. And you get to a page where it will probably ask you to add MFA. You can skip that for now. I'll show you how to do that in another video. Now, once you have been able to create an account with AWS, you get some email verifying your email address. You get some email confirming that your account has been verified, and you can start using AWS. By then, you have to log in to AWS, and once you log into AWS, you have a page similar to what you have on my screen. Here I would run you through everything that has to do with Elastic Compute Cloud, and that is where you'll be creating your instances, setting up your instances. So everything that has to do with Elastic Compute Cloud is what you find here. However, if there are other services that you want to run, you want to initiate in AWS, you have to click on this search. So services like S3, which caters for their cloud for cloud storage, RDS, which is for the database, relational database management system, DynamoDB, this is for the NoSQL database. And if I were to maybe deal with things that has to do with my hosting, hosted zone, and managing my domain name services, I'll come to Route 53. You get to understand each of these services as we go, but your default dashboard, or once you log into AWS, it brings you to the EC2. If you are not seeing a screen like this, you can as well just type EC2 here, and you click on the first one, which is virtual servers in the cloud. So that just brings you back to our EC2 page. So for us to be able to create an instance, remember, an instance is, a way I like to define instances, is your own virtual server in the cloud, and it can be used for development or production purposes. Whatever plans you have, this is where you come to create an instance. You can see here, you can clearly see your launch instance. So this is where we have to create an instance. But before we go there are some other things I need you to understand around the AWS environment. So I'm logged in, and if you look at the top right corner, you see where we have the United States Ohio region. Let me just zoom in so that you can have a clearer picture of my screen. Now you have the Ohio region, meaning that this is the region I am currently logged in. If I click here, it shows me all the regions that I have on my system. So there's a possibility that once you sign up your AWS account and you log in, it might take you to the closest region to where you are, using your IP address. If you have a VPN installed, you most likely look at the location that your VPN is currently is and ensures that it takes you to that environment. So you can always change your region. I'd like you, for the purpose of this training, to look at the region where you are now and you've created your AWS account and stick to it. Why am I saying so? Because you're just starting, you don't want to go and start creating resources in other regions, and when you forget to terminate those resources or stop them, you start incurring costs, and you'll be wondering where these costs are coming from, because resources that you have in Ohio. Now if you look at my dashboard, you can see I have one instance running here. There are 3 placements group, there are 12 security group, I have 4 key pairs here. If I change my region to, let's say, North Virginia, so I've switched to a different region, you can see that in North Virginia I have 5 instances running, right? Five instances are running here, which means if I were to shut down these instances, I will probably be incurring different costs for these instances at the moment, though most of them were deployed using the free tier, and I'm within the 1 year period for enjoying the free tier plan. However, if I were incurring costs and I don't need any of these services, I should have stopped them. But if I keep myself in Ohio without remembering that I have resources running in a different region, it just means that I'll be incurring costs that I'm not aware of. Now there are no instances running in this location. Same thing for every other location that I have it. So it means that I am switching to Tokyo, I am leaving Ohio, and I am going to manage resources, so I have direct access to the data centers in Tokyo. That's exactly what this means. So I would suggest you look at the region where you are and stick to that region, or better still, you operate from the North Virginia region, and let's all run our activities from there. So that's it about switching between regions on your AWS. There are some services that you have that work region based, and that is what the EC2 services offer. But services like your RDS, they are region based as well. But we have things like your AWS Cloud, your Route 53. Those are global services. So for instance, if I move to Cloud 53, so I'm moving to Cloud 53 services. This just means that I want to deploy resources, launch some hosted zones in my Cloud 53. By the time you look at the top right corner, you can see that it switches away from whatever region I was to global, meaning that everything that has to do with Route 53 is a global resource. It is not restricted to any region. Obviously, imagine you having a domain name and your domain name is restricted to a region. That wouldn't make your domain name access other services or IP address outside that region. However, you can make those conscious geolocation routing or restrictions as you might well please. You might have content that shouldn't be delivered in certain region in the world because of their regulation or certain compliances. So you might build a solution, and that solutions like this or a web application like this shouldn't be accessed in, let's say, China. So it means that when you finish deploying your solution, you can set your geolocations restrictions, settings to not allow visitors from China access such resources. So that's about moving around your EC2 or your services and the regions. You get to understand them better as we move on in the class. So the next thing I want to talk about here is things around your billing and costs. This is where you see your billing and costs, and how you manage your costs. And the thing about this particular page is it gives you an idea of what you've been spending on, what your current cost implication is. So you can see that this month cost is about $1 so far, and I have a bill of $34 from last month. There are some services that I might not be able to access if I don't clear this bill. So same thing happens here. You have exceeded 85% of your free tier usage limit. So these are notifications that I had gotten earlier informing me that I had exceeded my free tier for that month. So you can click on payments to see payments that you've made, as far as your account is concerned. And if you're about to make any form of payment, this is where you come to. So if I'm ready to make this payment, I just click on complete payment. So and if your card is no longer active, it would require that you input your new card details. So these are the free tier offerings that AWS has, and how I have used and exceeded its usage. So pretty much we'll talk more around costs as we build on with our services. Then there are areas where you also need to understand, where we set up alarms using CloudWatch. We'll be touching all that in a later video. CloudWatch is an AWS service that helps you monitor your infrastructure, monitors your resources and how you use them, and you can use it to send the relevant notifications, informing you about things that are happening within your system. So here you can create an alarm, just like I said. I can create an alarm. It will let you select the matrix. We'll be diving deeper into this, so I'm not showing you. We're not doing this now. Pretty much, just to give you an idea of some of the things that you can do with your AWS CloudWatch. So you set a matrix of what alarms you want to receive. I might say when a particular instance has hit 70% of the CPU usage, I should be notified. So but these are things that we'll get to understand. So why I'm clicking around is for you to just get acquainted. You can play around. As long as you don't set up any service, try not to set up any service at this point, and if you do, be quick to delete it so you don't just start incurring costs and without you noticing. So that's about moving around the AWS environment. So in our next video, we'll be looking at how to launch an instance where pretty much you log into your AWS console. I believe at this point you would have gotten your AWS account and you're ready to launch instances. You navigate to the dashboard, you launch an instance, you choose an Amazon machine image. I'll be explaining this in more detail. So these are pre-configured templates. So you know how you want to set up a new system, and you want to say, oh, I want to run on Windows 11, I want to run on Windows 10. So these are images that are already pre-built, pre-configured into the AWS infrastructure. So as soon as I'm choosing launching my instance, I choose the operating system that I want to run with. Because all these images are available for use on AWS. So I add the storage. So what's had what kind of how many gig storage I want for this particular instance that I'm running. I add tags. Tags is just me naming my instances for me to be able to easily identify them, or clear description for future reference. I configure my security group. So this is where you set the firewall settings for your instances, what ports should be enabled, what ports can and from which IP addresses or environment that you'll be needing to access your resources. So you create a key pair which you'll be using to access your instances much later. Then you launch your instance pretty quickly, and the next thing is to see how to access your instance from your terminal. For those using Mac, for you Windows users, you use Windows shell or your command prompt. I would recommend that you download Gitbatch. Gitbatch is a tool that gives you the Linux experience. Let's just keep it at that. And you can almost run all the possible Linux command that can enable you have interactions with your Linux servers, because most of all the instances and examples we'll be using will be around the Linux services. So that's it about this class. In our next class, we'll be doing a proper hands-on on how to launch instance, install Apache. So everything around what we've talked about is what we'll be practicing. I would expect that at this time you have set up your AWS account before you can move on to the next class. Yeah, there are some scripts and document that will be provided. I'll share a link in the next video where you can begin to download these resources. All right, thank you very much. See you in the next class.